The latest Space Engineers 1 update is here. This is the Economy 2 update, and as the name suggests, overhauls the economy systems in the game. I personally remember when we first had the economy introduced into Space Engineers. Not only does this update change how the economy system works, but it also has a bunch of new blocks, like structural blocks. However, one of the big additions is NPCs to the game. Keep in mind, these are rather basic at the moment, but it does answer a big requested feature for the game. Economy 2 allows you to store entire grids, repair your ship without replacing a single component, hunt bounties, haul cargo, and sell scrap for credits. Further mod API improvements open new possibilities for modders, server game masters, and even scenario makers. Hey everyone, I'm Captain Jack and welcome to my channel. Today we're discussing the Space Engineers Economy 2 update. If you want to stay up to date with sci-fi gaming, consider hitting that subscribe button. While you're watching this update video, let me know which part you are most interested in and plan to play with. Get commenting. Oh, and by the way, I'm somewhat under the weather while recording this video. Now, in typical Space Engineers style, there is a free component of this update, followed by a paid DLC update. We'll talk about the free content first, then the paid DLC. I've included YouTube chapters to help you navigate this video. Before we dive into this update, many of you might have wondered why you cannot interact with me in the Space Engineers update livestream, specifically on YouTube, as we've done for many years now. It seems my Captain Jack YouTube channel is now blocked from commenting on these streams and Space Engineers videos on YouTube, particularly from my channel. It's a bit of a shame, as I did appreciate being able to chat with you all and get feedback on the latest updates. Oh well. Let's discuss the Economy 2 update. A major part of this update is the services terminal. A big part of this is the grid garage feature, or the server hangar. If you've played on some dedicated Space Engineers servers, like my ones, you might be familiar with this feature. Part of the services terminal allows you to store grids that you don't need to access at the moment. The services terminal also allows you to both repair and sell grids. Repair and salvage services are exclusively to the economy system, making trade stations useful hubs of activity, and not just an optional side system. The services terminal lets you store entire grids and bring them back when you need them. Basically, you can free up your PCU and unleash your creativity. Store a specialized grid until an activity calls for its use, or clean up a crowded area around your busy base. It gives you a lot of playability options. When retrieving a stored grid, you can deploy it into the general area or place it more precisely using precision mode controls. These controls give you better control over where your ship appears and make it easier to handle tighter parking spaces or more organized hangars. Grid storage can also be used in more flexible ways depending on how the terminal is set up. There is an anyone can use option, allowing other players to interact with the storage system at trade stations or allied bases. There is also a per grid share with faction option, which lets you share specific stored grids with your faction members. And by default, retrieving a grid can take some time, but New World settings can let you dial in these times to make it behave exactly how you want. When retrieval timers are enabled, you can expedite the redeployment process by paying space credits. This block is loaded with optional settings, allowing server admins to configure it to their liking, including whether items are allowed to remain in stored grids, giving server owners and scenario creators fine control over how the system can be used. I actually really love this addition, and hopefully it makes running Space Engineers dedicated servers that little bit more better in terms of server performance. If you run a server, you know exactly what I mean. The grid repair service lets you bring a damaged grid to an NPC trade station and pay space credits to quickly restore damaged systems. This is a fast and convenient way to get ships and vehicles back into working order without manually handling every missing component and damaged block. It makes it a practical recovery option after combat, accidents, or long expeditions. Now, to use this service, you must be the majority owner of the grid, so no, you can't just take a stolen grid there and fully repair it. Let's talk about Grid Salvage, and yes, I am thinking of Mr. Castle as I talk about this. Grid Salvage lets you bring a grid to an NPC trade station and sell it as scrap for space credits through the services terminal. This is a quick and convenient way to turn damaged, outdated, or basically unwanted starships and vehicles into useful credits, instead of taking them apart by hand. It also kind of helps with grid performance as well. Now, to use this service, you must be the majority owner of the grid. If the grid still contains items, such as cargo, you'll get a warning before completing the sale. These items will not be recoverable after a transaction is completed. As you might have gathered from the Economy 2 update, there are an absolute ton, and I do mean a ton, of new changes for the economy systems in Space Engineers 1. The old contract screen has been repurposed into the new economy overview. This gives you a better view of the important store and contract information in just one place. It is designed to make price changes, item availability, and the overall state of the economy much easier to interact with while playing. When interacting with NPC-owned store blocks and contract blocks, you can also now see the time remaining until the next economy update. It makes it easy to understand when stores will restock and when new contracts will become available. The default time between store block restocks and contract block refreshes have also been reduced, helping the economy feel more active and responsive. If you're running a dedicated server, like I know many of you are and sometimes myself, this timing can be configured. Essentially, you can make it longer or shorter. Now, Item Search is a new tab that is in both store blocks and the economy overview. This allows you to easily find items you need. We've got a general store block improvement as well, and with these improvements, players can now trade hydrogen, oxygen, and modded gases with one another through player-built store blocks. It opens up new opportunities for player-to-player logistics, refueling services, and trade networks. Oh, how I would absolutely love to see fuel stations built in dedicated Space Engineer servers. I'd love to see that. Is it possible? Probably not. There's also the Economy Mod API. If you are a modder, there are now new possibilities for yourself as well as server admins and scenario makers. Let's talk about trade stations and starships. This update overhauls trade stations with 17 new prefabs. These are available on planetary, orbit, and deep space locations. Space pirate stations have also been expanded to better reflect their faction. Different faction types can now use their own station prefabs, helping trade stations feel more varied depending on whether you are visiting traders, miners, builders, military factions, or pirates. All trade stations now sell hydrogen, making them more useful and reliable as refueling stops during longer journeys. Together with new station layouts, improved ship sales, and better ways to discover new locations, the Economy 2 update makes stations feel much more like a connected part of everyday Space Engineers gameplay. The Starship market in Space Engineers has also been greatly expanded, with 43, yes 43, new and updated purchasable grids, including ships, rovers, drones, and missiles. Yes, go blow people up with that. This does give players a much wider range of ready-made options at trade stations, whether you want to jump straight into combat, pick up a useful utility vehicle, or just buy a solid starting point for your next custom build. These grids you can buy are meant to be practical foundations that players can easily adapt and make their own. Many are designed to support customization and expansion, giving you a better launching point for cargo hauling, combat, exploration, or logistics without needing to start completely from scratch. Drones, rovers, and even missiles are now also a part of station sales, giving players even more ready-to-use options straight from the market. Of course, a big part of the economy systems is contracts. We've had these in Space Engineers 1 for quite some time now. However, contracts in the Economy 2 update have been significantly expanded and rebalanced to make them feel more rewarding, more varied, and basically more enjoyable to play. I'll be honest, I've never found a massive use of them in games previously. This update adds several new contract types, improves payouts and contract flow, and gives players more reasons to engage with stations as part of a regular gameplay loop, rather than treating contracts as a simple credit grind. Escort contracts have also been removed and have also been replaced with more interesting and engaging alternatives. In terms of new contracts, you'll have to explore these in-game, but there are courier contracts, search, PvE bounty, hauling, salvage, item recovery contracts, and grid recovery contracts. Basically, go try them and tell me what you think. Either way, I think there's a good variety here that will keep you guys entertained for quite some time. The faction system for Space Engineers has been updated. This makes NPC factions easier to discover and more interactive. Finding new stations and factions is now much more intuitive. Trade stations can display dynamic billboard advertisements that grant GPS locations when interacted with. Datapads within station locations can also now appear as loot, and some encounters can trigger contracts that guide you to a new space station. Any reputation change can now also make the NPC faction visible to the player, helping the world feel more connected and easier to navigate. I mean, one of the big issues of Space Engineers is actually finding these trade stations. Hopefully this solves it. Reputation has also been reworked to be more flexible and easier to recover from. A hostile reputation with an NPC faction no longer blocks access to their stores or contracts, but instead, those factions will offer fewer contract types and worse prices until you improve your standing. Negative reputation no longer spreads to allied factions, and reputation is no longer lost or gained from interactions between player factions. A new world option, reputation decay over time, slowly moves reputation back towards its default values during active play, giving players a reason for continued interaction with the contract system. This helps keep faction relationships dynamic over time instead of locking them in permanently. Also in this update, safe zones have received a set of practical quality of life improvements. They're now automatically going to pull inventory like other blocks, but they have reduced power requirements and no longer use a separate filter for floating objects. Floating objects can now pass through safe zones and come to rest much faster inside of them. An item for the DLC pack, which again we'll discuss in a moment, is basically a Safe Zone 2 type block. It's a reimagined safe zone generator with an exposed animated core. Not much else to say, but it looks like a cool block. Basic NPCs are now in Space Engineers 1. Introduced in this Economy 2 update are these basic NPCs that now inhabit economy stations. These characters seem to just walk around the trading stations and such, not really doing much. While this is cool, it is not full-scale NPCs that players have been asking for in Space Engineers. However, this is a good starting point if the developers wish to continue down this path. I really do hope we get to see more life in the game's PvE systems, as it can add a lot to the world. Space Engineers, like many sandbox games, does suffer from an empty world at times. One of my favourite additions with this Economy 2 update is a new block set. This is structural blocks. There are 7 new blocks that allow you to expand the way you build large structures in Space Engineers 1. The first one is the structural platform. This is a 5x5 block and is 1 block thick. We've previously seen a mod for this on the Space Engineers Community Workshop on Steam. Now, while you're watching this, what can you see yourself using this type of block for? Personally, I think hangars or even landing pads, they can make use of these blocks really well. The next one is a structural platform connector. As you might imagine, this is just a regular structural platform, but with a connector in the middle. It's still a 5x5 and 1 block thick, but also has the connection points on all 4 sides, as well as the connector on the top, and there's also a connector on the bottom, or rather an access point on the bottom. This could serve as a landing pad, allowing our ships to connect and offload resources. We've then got the structural platform corner. This is basically half of a structural platform. Nothing special to say about this. You can easily add this to other blocks to make large landing platforms. But with that said, you could also use this block to build structures and more. It's really up to you. In this block, there are diagonal beams. First, there's a 3x3, then a 4x4, and then a 5x5. I actually really like these blocks. There's some nice detailing, and I can see myself using them for various things in Space Engineers. As the name suggests, these could easily be used to reinforce structural builds, such as landing pads and more. You can actually see some of these blocks being used in new structures introduced in the Economy 2 update, especially when we talk about trade stations earlier. Finally, there's the structural frame. There is plenty of uses of this block in building structures and more, yet you can pass directly through it. Perhaps you could use this to underground structures, since it kind of looks like the structures are being reinforced. Before we get to the Economy 2 DLC pack, the Space Engineers team are updating some of the older DLCs. The Apex Survival Pack is now getting the small grid storage bin. Decorative Pack 2 is now getting freight containers for small grids. We've had these containers in-game for some time, however, it is great to see these old DLCs being updated. If you own these DLCs, it's basically a free update and you'll see that apply when Space Engineers updates. Like the majority of previous Space Engineers content updates, paid DLC is here. Titled the Economy 2 pack, this is priced at $4.99 USD or your regional equivalent. These are cosmetic and decorative blocks that don't affect gameplay balance. While you're watching, comment below if you'll be picking up this DLC pack, or will you be sticking to free content. As part of the Economy 2 DLC pack, we have angled doors. As with many of the Space Engineers DLC blocks, these are highly detailed and do look really nice. Hats off to the team that designed these blocks. So we have 2 new angled doors, and as you can see, they both have some unique properties. The first allows you to walk straight through, and on you go. The second actually drops down. This could be used as an access hatch of sorts, perhaps leading to ladders or more. You can use these to get onto ladders and such immediately. Both of these blend in nicely with the 2x1 slope blocks we've had in Space Engineers for some time now. These blocks also pair with some of the bridge blocks introduced in previous updates to the game. In typical Space Engineer style, yes, you can launch ships through the doors and also fire weapons through them. Good luck. We've now got floor plan signs. If you've seen my most recent Space Engineer survival series, Relay 32, then you might know that we desperately need these signs in our space station. These signs attach to blocks to give you an idea of what is in that direction. Signs include stairwell, warehouse, storage, maintenance, cafeteria, medical, lobby, airlock, and bridge. Overall, there are 21 new sign blocks, which I'm sure you can put to good use. 2 new LCD blocks are introduced in this DLC pack. Economy 2 now introduces Billboards. The first is a freestanding LCD screen. These can easily be placed to display information, great for space stations, and more. Basically, where you want information or adverts to be shown off. Second is a cylindrical LCD screen. As you can see, this block has 3 screens on the block. Combine this with a rotor to easily create a rotating advertisement. No, sadly it does not rotate on its own, you actually have to create a rotor and away you go. Of course, you can just add your own images to these LCD blocks in Space Engineers. If you want to know more about how to do that, let me know and we can arrange a tutorial to explore it further. Another block set introduced with the Economy 2 DLC pack is a now viewport set. There are 10 new blocks here. As the name suggests, they're just viewports through which you can see. They're angled and half-block variants. These are great for spaceship designs or even ground bases. There's even a double window variant and an inverted variant. These blocks come under the window walls block group in the Space Engineers block menu. From a cost standpoint, these are rather cheap to build. But will you be including them in your Space Engineers build going forward? I actually really like these blocks and hopefully I can find a way to use them in my creations going forward, maybe on a Defender. A couple of new blocks for the Economy 2 DLC are vivariums. These are trees in glass cases, which makes it sound pretty basic. There are 4 variants of these blocks. This DLC edition introduced proper plant life to Space Engineers. Of course, for years we have had the planter block in game. We've got 2 1x1x3 blocks and a 3x3 block. You can easily upgrade buildings with these blocks or space stations. Personally, I do think these make nice additions to space stations and such, and yes, I will be adding them into Relay 32 in the next recording session. Another block set is the bulk cargo containers. These are 3 blocks that are large grid only and essentially big shipping containers. They are basically heavy duty containers designed for moving large volumes of materials. For years, I've wanted blocks like this in Space Engineers, so I'm actually really happy with them. Yes, I will be using these in many of my series and scenarios and cinematics going forward, because I think they look amazing. Time to build an RWI cargo ship. Maybe join me on stream very soon as we do that. Okay, so we're nearing the end of this update video for Space Engineers. Overall, I think Update 209 brings some much needed changes and updates to Space Engineers 1. For years, many have requested updates to the in-game economy systems, especially as the game has progressed. Hopefully, these changes will allow for more vibrant gameplay in the dedicated Space Engineers server environment. Now only if we can make those servers actually easy to run and maintain. Update 209 also brings additional improvements such as new joystick and controller customization, support for more flexible joystick control rebinding, inventory improvements, and a variety of mission items. I do recommend reading the full changelog for updates on that one. Development on both Space Engineers 1 and Space Engineers 2 is progressing nicely. For example, there are 2 dedicated teams of developers. One is working on the first game, which is Space Engineers 1, and the other is working on building the foundations of Space Engineers 2. Essentially, what comes to Space Engineers 1 can basically inspire the developers for Space Engineers 2 and vice versa. Yes, this can work the other way around. The next Space Engineers 1 update will focus on bug fixes, system improvements, and overall game stability. This will be update 210. However, players can still expect another major update later this year, with the developers teasing Warfare additions. What that looks like, I don't know, but hopefully, maybe some NPC warfare, that'll be really fun. Okay everyone, this is the end of this update video. Will you be picking up the DLC pack or will you be leaving it for the moment? Do let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. It's another exciting day where we've got a fantastic new Space Engineers update. I'll have more thoughts on update 209 once I actually get to play with the economy systems. Unfortunately, I'm not one of the creators who gets previews for what's coming to the game, so I will also be jumping in alongside all of you and testing this update firsthand. This does allow me to give you some honest feedback on what's actually going on with the game. For now, I've been Captain Jack, thank you very much for watching, and thank you for putting up me sounding somewhat ill in this video, and I'll hopefully see you very soon when I'm feeling a little bit better. If you do want to keep up to date with Space Engineers game development and sci-fi gaming in general, hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to join me in my Discord server. We're actually launching a brand new Space Engineers gameplay server soon, and much more. For now, I've been Jack. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.